You're listening to 40 Fit Radio, your source for health, fitness, and lifestyle for the 40-plus community. This is your host, Darren Deaton. Welcome to the 40 Fit Nation. Hey, welcome back to 40 Fit Radio, and welcome back to the 40 Fit Nation. I've got Coach Trent and Coach Charity in the house this morning. Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Oh, they can't see the video.
No, thank God they can't see the video. Trent was doing
Guns are out.
bicep poses like he was living on Venice Beach here. For all you old guys and ladies, you know what that is because that's where bodybuilding
The
is
sun's
born.
out here in Keller, Texas.
Yeah,
finally.
we finally have. Do you have sun in Oklahoma?
No.
In Shonkaponka?
It
You
is-
live in Shonkaponka?
No, I don't live in Chonkaponka.
Where do you live
I
again?
live in Catoosa right now, but I'm...
Do you live in Katonkatonk? Katonkatonk? And I'm Steve Monk. Isn't that song? Keep the perfect rhythm.
Magical.
Who is that again? Who sings that?
I don't know.
It's not Alan Jackson. It's the other guy. Donkey donk. Well, hey, guys, today we're going to talk about conditioning. Sometimes clients will come to us, and this is not a podcast about conditioning as a mode of exercise, but it's really a podcast about when clients come to us and they say, I want to do some cardio. 9 times out of 10, what they're really wanting to do is accelerate fat loss. They're wanting to lose more weight. They're wanting to improve their body composition. So they'll come to us as coaches and say, hey, I want to do some cardio, or I want to do some conditioning. And so sometimes they'll come to us because they actually want to improve their cardiorespiratory or aerobic capacity. They'll actually want to improve their conditioning, their stamina, or their endurance. But many times the reason why, or at least my clients, the reason why they request it is that they're looking for another way to burn calories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like January rolls around. Oh man, hey coach, it's time to get lean. Toss me some cardio.
Yeah.
And
Right, everybody's got their New Year's resolutions, and everybody's going to get that fit body for bathing suit season.
That's
you know?
right. They
Time
picked
to-
out the
time to
new
get abs.
swimwear.
Yep.
And I appreciate the goal setting and the sentiment, but it's not the way.
Yeah, it
This
is
is not the way.
So let's start off by just talking about first. I mean, there's guys, there are a ton of foundational, what we call here on our podcast, first principles that individuals need to know to be able to separate truth from lies, to be able to separate, fact from fiction or fad from good, stable knowledge, And so one of the things that people think they can do is that they can burn off a bad diet, bad nutrition. It's not going to happen.
No.
Okay. You cannot condition or do enough cardio to burn off a poor diet. In other words, caloric overload, or if you have a calorie excess.
Yeah.
Okay, you have more calories coming in than you're supposed to have coming in. It's really, really hard to burn it off.
The other day, I was starving. Jordan and I-
Literally starving
literally starving.
in America. Okay, there you have it, folks.
So I hadn't eaten hardly anything all day, and Jordan and I, we were traveling, and we got dinner with a friend, and I ordered a cheeseburger, and I went all the way. I had bacon, blue cheese,
Yes.
sweet potato fries. I
My
mean,
mouth is
all the way.
salivating.
Wow.
And I probably ate in that single meal, not exaggerating,
1,500
That's what I was going to say.
1,800 calories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so here's the deal. If you have one of those, like, what could I do to burn off 1,800 calories?
Run 10 marathons.
Yeah, 10 marathons in a row.
Get rhabdo.
If I ran for 10 days straight,
Yeah.
Yes.
then I could burn off that one meal, right? So it's just the magnitude of the amount of calories you can eat with the calorie dense food that we have in our modern world in particular. It's just you can't overcome it with exercise. And so that's not what we're trying to do here. And so we wanted to do this because it's January. A lot of people have a goal to lose some fat, especially after the pandemic. They might not have been as active or as attentive to their eating as they were in previous years. So if that's you and you want to lose some body fat, we need to go over and review some basics here of how that happens. And the first thing Darren said, it ain't going to happen from exercise, right? We had, if you want to go back into the archives, we had Robert Santana, our good friend, dietitian, PhD, I think now in nutrition. Smart guy.
I think he's working on it right now.
Yeah.
And
Finishing it up.
he reminded us that if you look at the stack of how many calories you burn every day, right, your base metabolic rate, and you kind of add up, well, where does that come from? Let's say you burn 2,000 calories a day, and that's your maintenance. That's your base metabolic rate. And you say, like, well, where does that 2,000 calories of burn coming from? Exercise only accounts for like 20%, maybe 25%.
Yeah.
It's not very much. Most of the calorie burn that you have during the day, the vast majority of it comes from just existing. It's just, it's just simply being alive and your body doing its normal maintenance routine. So if that's the case, then what you want to do if you want to lose body fat is the first thing you have to do is you've got to get that base rate up. We want to increase the metabolism up first, because if you do that, that's going to have that's the biggest bang for your buck in terms of getting your metabolism up, so that now you can create some body fat loss by eating a little bit less food.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think people, we live in a shortcut society.
Yep.
We live in a microwave era. We live in a, drive-through era, whatever you want to call it. And so everything is very, very convenient. True long-term body recomposition, I like to call it that because I don't like to call it just fat loss. Fat loss is part of that equation, but it's only half the equation. And you can't achieve an end product with half of the equation, And so body recomposition is basically built off of either losing body fat or gaining body fat, and either losing lean mass or gaining lean mass. We never, in general, I would say, and this is a generality, but we never recommend a loss of lean mass. It's just not something we do, because life and other things just naturally cause that to happen, especially as we age. And in this group, that's what's happening.
Yeah.
But I think that people have this misnomer that they can just merely change their activity level and they're going to automatically burn off that bad nutrition. So our number one principle here is that your diet needs to be healthy, and the caloric load, meaning the amount of calories that you're eating on a 24-hour basis, it needs to be appropriate based on your basal metabolic rate, which is your resting metabolism. It's how fast you burn calories at rest, and your activity-driven metabolism, okay? And so your calories need to match that, and you need to make sure, we've had these conversations, and we're not going to go over the nutrition today because that's not the point of this podcast, but your protein needs to be high. Your carbs need to be clean. Stay with single ingredient foods. Stay away from processed sugars. Shop on the perimeters of the grocery store. Yada, 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 yada. We have all these different things we talked about in prior nutrition podcasts. But you really need to look at the idea, though, that it's all about calories in, calories out. And so when someone comes to us and wants to use conditioning to make that the solution to the body fat loss problem, it's a losing battle. It's a losing battle. Now, I will say this, and Charity, you could speak to this more as a female, but I know my wife, Michelle, loves to run when her hips bother a little bit sometimes, so she can't run as much as she'd like to. But she loves to run. And the reason why she likes to run is she sees, quick fat loss with running, because it does burn a lot of calories. But really, ultimately, what we should be doing conditioning for is cardiorespiratory aerobic capacity, cardiopulmonary capacity. We should be using it to improve our heart fitness and our lung fitness and our ability to process energy, what we call the metabolic pathways, which is how we burn food stuff. It's how we burn food stuff in our body and how our cells use it, not for weight loss. But it is nice to use conditioning in conjunction as an adjunct, and as an adjunct, I mean accessory to barbell training or strength training, because this points back to the idea that you were talking about, Trent, which is increasing the metabolic rate.
Yeah. Well, it goes back
gaining lean mass.
It's back to the very beginning. We've said it a million times. Everything has to be moderated. It's moderation. If all you do is run, you're not strong. And eventually when you get to age X, I don't know what that is for you, it's going to be hard for you. Your joints are going to be crap because all you've done is pound them on pavement for year after year after year. It needs to complement. Just like Darren just said, we want two things we can bring together to get the most bang for our buck. And that's what people don't understand. There is no clear-cut way to do this, friends. All the information is there. The main thing is you have to do it, and you need to do both of them. You have to have the muscle mass to make your body have something to repair, so you burn more calories when you're not doing anything. That's the whole reason I barbell train, honestly, because when I sleep, my body's working.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
When
That's the recovery mode.
Right. When you run and you're done, you ain't getting that. It's over.
Right.
And that part, it's not the biggest bang for your buck. But if you complement and you merge the two, it's very nice. It's a nice sandwich because, people there are cardio people. I don't want to bash them. There's lots of threads out there, barbell people just don't like cardio. No, it's not it. But it is
Right.
for me, it's my primary source because I get more bang for the buck with barbell training. Yes.
Yeah.
Than getting on a treadmill.
Well, when you think about it, okay, so let's just define, because Charity, we were talking about this earlier before we went live. Cardio or conditioning is basically not necessarily always steady state, but it is a type of exercise where you're trying to accelerate the heart rate, accelerate respiratory rate, breathing. Okay, so you're trying to make the pump work harder and make you breathe more, doing some type of work. And so it could come in many different fashions. And we were going to talk about this today offline for a guy that that wants to do some more hiking.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he wants to specifically train for that hiking and be ready for that. And so you have to consider all the metabolic pathways, which basically what that means is your body has three or four ways, right? We think there's another one now, to burn energy, okay?
Yeah.
One is very, very fast. And when I say very, very fast, I mean in less than a minute, in seconds. One takes a little bit longer, which is like 1 to 3 minutes. And everything past 3 to 4 minutes on would be considered more endurance training, okay? And so you've got these different metabolic pathways that you use. Now, that's what conditioning and cardio normally is. It can be monostructural, which means one activity like biking, running, swimming, rowing, pushing a sled, arm bikes, whatever else is the Airdyne bikes, like arm and leg bikes, like the Schwinn's and the Echoes, the Rogue Echo. Those are the different forms. Now, it can also be in the form of high intensity interval training. So it could also be in the form of something like a CrossFit workout or a workout that includes body weight exercise, a little bit of barbell work, and then maybe a row or something like that. And you do that in circuits. Okay, you do that in what we call different rounds. And so you do it for time, or you do it for a amount of work. You could make it time-based or work-based. That's generally the two. And we did this in our conditioning. This is in our conditioning podcast, guys.
Yep.
If you want, I don't know the exact number, but
we've done a few of them over the years.
You can go back and look at it. But so that's what cardio and conditioning is. And it's great for you, but like Trent said earlier, and Charity confirmed, our number one goal here as coaches is building muscle mass with clients, especially the older population.
Yeah.
For women, they need more testosterone. For men, they need more testosterone. Running and long distance, steady state cardio does just the opposite. It declines both of those.
Yeah.
It increases estrogen in men. It decreases testosterone in men. So we want to promote something that's going to help to build muscle mass because, and this is why the science is important, folks, when we have a muscle cell, it burns more units of calories or foodstuffs per the same amount of work that a fat cell does.
Yeah, yeah. And think
and
about
increases your metabolic rate.
Yeah, and think about it. Like a muscle cell has got a lot more stuff to do during the day than a fat cell.
Well, it's an active contractile element, and a fat cell's an inert element.
That's
it doesn't
right.
do
Yeah,
anything. It's passive.
Fat cell is just storage, right? It's just you just
it's a gas tank.
shove some triglycerides into a cell.
It's
and it
Job
just
of the
sits there.
Hut. It's just Job of the Hut sitting there.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
But a muscle cell, even if that muscle is not doing anything, like when you're sleeping, right? Well, what's your body doing with it? Well, it's sitting there and it's innervated. Your nerves are sitting there.
It has a resting rate.
Has a resting rate.
It's actually
sitting there
contracting.
Your body's kind of sitting there and contracting all your muscles at a very low rate, right, as you're sleeping. And then, of course, when you're moving throughout the day, it has to work. And, of course, when you're working out, whether you're lifting weights or you're running or sprinting or whatever, it's doing a lot of work. So that's
burning energy.
Very expensive tissue
Burning
to
food.
maintain.
Yep.
So I want to make this clear. let's say you are a person who has been training, right? You are training, but you're like, I want to get rid of this gut, right? I'm kind of tired of this waistline. You can do this without doing any quote unquote cardio.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
You could just keep, if you've been primarily strength training, let's say you're an intermediate lifter or something along those lines. You've been doing it for you've been doing it for a few months or 6 months or a year or whatever. You could lose that body fat without doing any what we would traditionally call cardio.
Sure.
Right? It can all be driven with your diet, and it has to come there first. Then you can complement with the cardio, right? So it's like a little afterburner, right? But it can't be the main solution. And I think that's what we wanted to drive home today, is that cardio is not a magic bullet. It is a very important tool for building for our health, right? It's great for all those reasons that Darren went through, but it is not a primary tool for making your body leaner. Right. That comes from the diet and comes from having muscle mass.
Well, and I also think that a lot of people need to understand this, just a little bit of sciencey stuff here, because I like to go into the sciencey, geeky stuff. But when you're at sleep, when you're not even sleep, when you're laying on the bed and not moving, your muscles are contracting.
Yeah.
People don't understand that. And the way we know that is that when you take someone and you put them under anesthesia and you paralyze them, basically, there's no function, but their muscles are still at a slightly low contractile rate. And here's the reason why we know that. When you take a stroke patient or a paralytic patient, someone who has had a quadriplegia or a paraplegic, they have no function from the legs down, they'll develop spasticity in those limbs or flaccidity, one of the two. We have a normal resting rate, which is basically the muscles at rest and the arm is not doing anything or the leg's not doing anything. But the muscle's contracting. The muscle actually has a very low voltage contraction that keeps the two muscles that we call the agonist and the antagonist, the muscles on either side of a joint, in balance so that the joint doesn't bend one way or another. Okay? Right. So when patients like a stroke patient or a paraplegic ends up having an insult to the brain or the spinal cord, then they can go into either spasticity, which is too much muscle contraction in one muscle group or another, or flaccidity, which means no contraction at all, and that resting rate is gone. What ends up happening is the joint kind of draws up and contracts, and we've seen that with people. Okay, why is this important? The science of this is important because you have to understand that muscles constantly work. They constantly work. So they're constantly burning calories. Fat does not. Okay? Muscles are a contractile element. They work. And so if you want to increase your metabolic rate, guys and gals out there, if you're over 40 and you want a faster metabolism as you age, you better be lifting weights. I had this conversation with a patient the other day. She had a fractured navicular bone in the foot. She's a runner. She had a stress fracture, and then it became a worse fracture. She's like probably 50-ish. I didn't check. I can't remember her age, but she's like 50-ish. We were talking, and she said, so what would you recommend I do? I said, well, I would run less. I said, how many days a week are you running? She said, 5 to 6 days a week I'm running. I was like, how many miles? I run 3 to 5 miles, 5 to 6 days a week. There's no plan there. She's just running because she enjoys it. Right. She enjoys the therapy of it and everything. She enjoys that type of conditioning or cardio. Yeah,
absolutely.
So I was like, that's cool. I was like, but you know what? You need to, when you go back, you need to do 2 to 3 days a week of barbell or strength training, and then 2 days a week of running. Do a high-intensity run day where you're doing sprint intervals, and the next day you can do more of a steady-state day. She'll get much more bang for her buck. She'll lean up. She'll lose body fat. Hey, bodies that have more muscle look younger, plain and simple.
That's right.
That's plain and simple.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's important for people to understand these basic principles.
So all this that Darren's saying, if you are really want to geek out with Darren, there is a wonderful YouTube video. It's my favorite. I'll send the link to Trent. Maybe he can post it in the notes. But it's basically called The Crash Course of Muscle Cells. And this really geeky, cute guy does a great job of explaining and showing you exactly what it looks like that we're talking about, because it really is. It's kind of exciting to know what's going on in there. It's like a bunch of spaghetti in a bundle in there, just working its little heart out.
Well, I think I get excited about talking about this stuff because, we definitely don't know all the science that we need to know about human fitness and performance and health yet. That's a given. None of us here none of us are reinventing the wheel. We're all just regurgitating knowledge that we've learned from smarter people. But I do get excited because when you start to put this stuff together in a palatable, workable, proven model, which we have here at 40Fit, it makes sense. It just makes sense. And the basic principles, again, to repeat, are you need more muscle mass. You need to control your diet, push away from the table sometimes. If you want to lose weight, you got to go into a slight calorie deficit or repartition what you're eating. Sometimes you can eat the same amount of calories, but you repartition what you're eating. You get more calories from protein and less calories from fat and carbohydrates, and all of a sudden you start losing weight because you're eating better foodstuffs. And then the last thing would be do conditioning and cardio for enjoyment and to expand your human performance capacity, because we do want good cardiorespiratory health, especially in the stuff we've got going on right now with the pandemic and respiratory viruses. And it's important to have good lung and heart health.
Yes, and at the same time, everyone, cardio is LP'd, just like barbell training. Don't go out there and try to run a marathon or do whatever when you've never done it before. No, we ease into it. We keep track of the time. We keep track of the length. Just like Darren was talking about, there's a process for all of these things, moderation.
Yeah, and I think too that people have to understand too that strength training and barbell training does expand your cardiorespiratory function. Yeah. Just go do a heavy set of 5 and see how hard you're breathing. The other day I did a heavy set of a heavier set of 5 squats, and I was breathing hard. My heart rate got up. So just because you're not doing what would be classically called conditioning or cardio, you're still improving your cardiorespiratory function. It's just for shorter interval type stuff. But it has a much greater impact on your aerobic fitness and your cardiorespiratory fitness than long steady state stuff does. If you look at the science of it, again, another podcast in itself.
Absolutely.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for joining us on the 40Fit Radio today and the 40Fit Nation, talking a little bit about conditioning body fat or body recomposition. You can check us out, Facebook, 40Fit Nation. You can email us, info@40fit.com. On Instagram, we're at 40Fit Radio, and you know where we guys are, so you can find us there. So thanks for joining us today. Thanks for joining the 40Fit Nation.
See you next week.